It is to say that men have a burden and a responsibility to exalt, to protect, and to provide for women. And not just any woman, but for a woman in a covenant relationship. Notice what's happening here. You have God giving Adam this task to till and to work the ground. So that this primary task that God has given to Adam to provide, to protect, that is what is cursed. God says, after the fall, you will bring forth the bread of the earth with frustration, with sweat from your brow. There will be thorns, there will be thistles. It's not that God is creating work as an aspect of the curse. Work is present in the garden before the fall. Sometimes we're confused because we think about this in terms of the Sunday school literature that we grew up with, in which you see the Garden of Eden and you've got Adam and Eve kind of lazing around. They're there in the garden just kind of watching the animals frolic. They're feeding each other grapes. They've got these strategically placed tree branches so you know they're naked, but you don't really know that they're naked. And they're just kind of living in this really kind of boring environment. That is not what God is doing here. God is putting them in a garden and giving them a responsibility to be fruitful, to multiply, to spread out, and to subdue the entire earth. They are given a task. And Adam is given a task to be a provider and to be a protector. Now, why is that? Why is it that God chooses to make the man physically stronger? And why is it that God chooses to say to the man, you have the burden to provide and to protect? Well, the Scripture tells you. Scripture tells you that when you're looking at Genesis chapter 2, you ought to be asking yourself, why is God doing this? Why is God creating them male and female? Why does God say it is not good for Adam to be alone? And the answer comes at the end. In Ephesians chapter 5, when the Apostle Paul says there is a mystery as to why God created them male and female. There is a mystery as to why a man and a woman are to leave father and mother and to cleave to one another and become one flesh. That mystery has now been revealed. What God is wanting to show in male headship, what God is wanting to show in the glory of womanhood, what God is wanting to show in the one flesh union is Christ and the church. He says, and as a man, your primary calling and vocation is to demonstrate that by being a protector and being a provider. That's why the New Testament says of a man who refuses to take care of his own family, who refuses to provide for his own family, says he's not just a deadbeat dad, says that he has denied the faith. He is worse than an unbeliever. Why is that? Because he is denying the truth of that cosmic mystery of a Christ who cares for his church. Adam is given a role of headship here, but it is not a self-protecting headship. It is not a seeking of privilege. It is not, woman, get me my chips. It is instead exactly what the Apostle Paul says in Ephesians chapter 5. It is as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. Now that is real leadership. That is real headship. That is real provision and real protection, but it is not provision and protection that seeks to grasp for one's own gain. It is instead seeing what is the best interest of this family. What's the best interest of my wife? Whether or not there's a wife actually in the picture now or not. Do not think, men in this room, that you are exempt from provision and protection simply because you are not yet married. You are to be shaping yourself right now with in view the wife that God will give to you. With right now in view the children that God will give to you, and right now with a view to how you are revealing that Christ Church ministry, that Christ Church mystery, especially through the way that you are acting as a man. That provision and that protection God has placed on men as a burden of responsibility in a way that is glorious. And there is a longing for it, even out there in a culture that says that they hate it. Go and see the way that Satan will pervert this longing for male provision and protection. Go and walk into a bookstore and go into the romance novel section, porn for girls. Reach and pull a romance novel out and see what's on the cover. What's on the cover is a man who is coming through sweeping a woman off of her feet, usually has his shirt off, and he is carrying her somewhere. And if you talk to the people who write these romance novels, they say what they want to do is to give the image of, in the words of one of them, an alpha male with a job. Somebody who is willing to lead, somebody who is willing to make decisions, and somebody who is willing to commit and be there. Now, why does that appeal to people? Why does that appeal even to post-feminist America? It's because there is a longing for decisive leadership, even when that decisive leadership is perverted and flawed and misses the mark. God has designed these men in such a way, He has designed Adam and designed the men who come after him to be those who are, number one, not hyper-masculine. The Apostle Paul, for instance, says in 1 Timothy chapter 2, there's to be no quarreling. He is not talking about, with male headship, Arnold Schwarzenegger. He is talking here about a self-control, someone who has this headship, has this leadership in check, and someone who is pouring his life out for the sake of a woman in covenantal union and for the children who come from that union. So what that means is male headship is done away with by men who use women for sexual objectification. Male headship is gone with the Playboy philosophy. Male headship is gone with men who cheat on their future wives through sexual adventures with women who are not their wives. And not only that, it means that when a man surrenders that headship by either being the kind of person who can't make decisions, being the kind of person who refuses to prepare himself to provide, to work the ground and bring forth bread from the ground, when you have a person who refuses to have self-control and to keep his passions in check, then what you have is someone who is denying the gospel. You have someone who is pointing to that mystery that God has ingrained in the universe in a way that actually subverts and denies the gospel. That's why human sexuality is so important in the Scriptures. God does not say that fornication is naughty. God says fornication is blasphemy. God doesn't say that adultery is wrong because it breaks up homes and hurts children, although it does. He says adultery is wrong because it's blasphemous. It pictures a Christ church union of a Christ who abandons his church. That's why divorce is seen by God as an abomination. It is not just because divorce leaves all kinds of bad consequences in its wake. It's because you've got a picture here of a one flesh union of Christ and his church, and now you've got a picture of that one flesh union being ripped apart. That is blasphemous. Male headship is to protect and to provide. But notice also, the text shows you here the glory of womanhood. There is a reason why Adam is dissatisfied. He looks around and says, none of these beings here are what I am looking for. I am looking for someone who is bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. And he's longing for this kind of intimacy in a woman, not just someone who is flesh. He's looking for a woman. He is looking for someone who is given the charge in the text to be specifically the mother of all living. So that the woman is given a nurturing spirit. She is giving a task to not only bring physically forth life from generation to generation, she is called to be a mother. Every woman in this room is called to motherhood. Now, maybe that not everyone in this room will be biologically a mother, but there is a mothering role, even for those of you who are set apart to be single all of your lives. There is a mothering role within the life of the congregation, Titus 2, where older women are to serve as mothers to younger women, bringing them along and nurturing them in the faith. You have a sense in which God has created a woman not only different from a man physically, she is different from a man emotionally. She is different from a man in terms of her affections. She is different from a man in terms of the way that she can be hurt. That's why in the New Testament you've got warnings that are given to men that you are to bear with your wife so she's equal to you.